The restaurant's lights shimmered against the empty chair, their golden reflections dancing on polished glass and untouched wine. Claire glanced at her watch, 7:30. Another no-show. Another night where success couldn't fill the silence beside her. She was the city's most powerful CEO, admired, envied, and untouchable. Yet, behind the diamond earrings and tailored grace, she carried a loneliness no title could hide. Her assistant had arranged this blind date, hoping she'd find something real, but Claire had stopped believing in real long ago. She sighed, gathering her purse, ready to retreat to her cold apartment and another night buried in work. That's when she heard it, soft, quick footsteps, almost like a heartbeat skipping through the hush of the restaurant. A little girl, no older than 6, stood before her, clutching a wilted flower as if it were a treasure. Her eyes were wide, uncertain yet hopeful. "Are you Miss Claire?" she asked in a tiny, trembling voice. The question hung in the air, cutting through the CEO's composed calm. Claire blinked, confused. "Yes, sweetheart, who are you?" The girl smiled shyly and held out the flower. "My daddy, sorry he's late." Time seemed to pause. The waiters looked over curiously, and the soft music felt distant, almost unreal. Claire's heart, used to contracts and calculations, stumbled in her chest. She slowly accepted the flower. It was slightly crushed, the petals tired, but beautiful in its sincerity. "Your daddy," she repeated, almost whispering. The girl nodded eagerly, turning toward the entrance. Claire followed her gaze, and her breath caught. A man was hurrying in from the rain outside. His shirt was damp, his jacket worn, and his hands trembled slightly as he tried to smooth his hair. He looked nothing like the men she usually met, no polished suit, no rehearsed charm. Yet there was something in his eyes that stopped her completely. A quiet strength. A tired kindness. A story untold. He approached slowly, his expression both nervous and apologetic. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low but steady. "I didn't mean to be late." The bus broke down, and he stopped, noticing the recognition dawning on her face. His name echoed in her mind before he even said it. Ethan. The man she had once fired. The man whose file she remembered too well. Years ago, he'd missed work for 3 days, no notice, no call. The company rule had been clear: termination. She hadn't asked why. She didn't have time for personal issues. But now, standing before her, drenched and trembling, he wasn't the careless employee she once believed him to be. He was a father. And beside him stood the reason he had once disappeared, the little girl clutching her flower. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The restaurant faded away, leaving only the three of them in a fragile silence. Ethan looked down, as if remembering everything at once: the humiliation, the loss, the long nights rebuilding from nothing. "You probably don't remember," he said softly, "but that day, my wife was dying. I didn't get the chance to explain." His voice cracked just slightly, enough to pierce through the walls Claire had built around her heart. Something inside her shifted, painfully and beautifully. She remembered signing his termination papers with indifference, convincing herself it was just business. But business had cost someone everything. She swallowed hard, the flower trembling in her hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The words felt foreign yet freeing. Ethan smiled faintly, eyes gentle. "Don't be. Losing that job pushed me to start over. I built a small repair shop. Not much, but it keeps us going. And this little 1 inch," he looked at his daughter, who was now sitting on the chair beside Claire, swinging her legs, "she's my reason for every day." Claire looked at the girl, then back at Ethan. Success had given her everything, except the one thing this man clearly had: love that didn't need status or power to exist. Her throat tightened as realization washed over her. For years, she had chased perfection, not peace. But in this simple, rain-soaked meeting, she saw what truly mattered: human connection, forgiveness, and the kind of love that could only grow through loss. Ethan placed his coat around his daughter's shoulders and smiled again. "You helped me once, without meaning to," he said gently. "You taught me that sometimes the fall gives us the strength to rise right." Claire felt tears sting her eyes. Maybe redemption didn't come in grand gestures, but in quiet moments, when someone from your past walked in and reminded you that people, not profits, were what made life worth living. As Ethan and his daughter prepared to leave, the girl turned back, waving the little flower in the air. "Bye, Miss Claire. Daddy says don't be sad." Claire smiled through her tears, clutching the flower to her heart. For the first time in years, she didn't feel empty. She felt human. Ethan stood there, rain-soaked yet calm, his breath visible in the soft glow of the restaurant lights. The faint hum of music surrounded them, but for Claire, the world had gone silent. His presence felt like a memory brought to life, one she wasn't ready to face yet couldn't look away from. "Didn't think you'd come," he said quietly, a hint of nervous laughter behind his words. Claire opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, the little girl wriggled free from her father's side and climbed onto Claire's lap, her small hands holding out the wilted flower. "Daddy says you helped him once," she whispered, her innocent smile melting the air between them. "Now he wants to help you smile." The simple sentence hit Claire like a wave. Her vision blurred, not from embarrassment or surprise, but from tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed in years. She looked at the child, her soft curls damp from the rain, her tiny fingers clutching the flower with pride, and something inside Claire began to crack. The woman who had spent her life hiding behind success, behind walls of control and image, suddenly felt small, exposed, and human. She looked up at Ethan, struggling to find words, but he only stood there with quiet dignity, his eyes calm yet filled with an ache that spoke louder than anger ever could. She finally whispered, almost afraid to ask, "It's you, isn't it?" Ethan nodded, his voice steady but gentle. "You probably don't remember the day, but I do. You were my boss once. I missed 3 days of work, and you let me go." The memory flashed like lightning in Claire's mind, an HR report, a name she barely glanced at, a signature she scribbled without thought. At the time, it had been a routine decision. Just business. Yet now, hearing his voice, she realized it had been someone's breaking point. "My wife was dying," he continued softly. "I spent those days in the hospital, holding her hand. I didn't have the heart, or the strength, to call. When I came back, it was too late." The words pierced through her like a confession she didn't deserve to hear. Guilt wrapped around her chest, heavy and real. For the first time in her career, she saw the cost of her ambition not in profits or headlines, but in the pain of one man's story. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "Ethan, I didn't know. I was so," he stopped her with a small shake of his head. "You don't need to explain. I was angry once, but I learned something important. That pain pushed me to change. It made me realize that success isn't about what you have, it's about who you become after losing everything." He knelt slightly beside his daughter, brushing her hair away from her face as he smiled. "You gave me pain," he said softly, "but it taught me to love harder. It made me the father I am now. So, thank you." His words weren't laced with bitterness, only understanding, the kind that comes after years of healing. Claire's hands trembled as she held the flower closer to her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought I was doing the right thing back then. I thought strength meant never stopping for anyone." Ethan looked up, his eyes kind. "Maybe you just needed to remember what it feels like to stop." There was a long silence. The little girl, unaware of the history between them, played with the napkin holder, humming softly. Claire watched her, realizing how much love and patience it must have taken for Ethan to raise her alone. Every bit of struggle was hidden behind the calm in his voice, the steadiness in his gaze.